So, you probably think science has all the big questions figured out, right? The origin of the universe, the code of life, you name it. But what if I told you it has this massive blind spot for the one thing, the only thing you're absolutely certain is real? Yeah, that blind spot? It's, it's the experience you're having right this second. The colors you're seeing, the sounds you're hearing, that inner feeling of just being you. Look, science can map every single neuron firing in your brain, but it has absolutely no explanation for why any of that activity feels like something on the inside. And we take this completely for granted, don't we? I mean, you open your eyes in the morning and poof, a world just appears. Seems simple. But behind that simple act is a mystery so profound, so deep, that for decades, trying to study it was basically career suicide for any serious scientist. No joke. Just look at the date on this quote right here. 1989. Yeah, you heard that right. 1989, not 1889. I mean, that's how recently the entire scientific community was just dismissing consciousness as, something for priests and poets to talk about, definitely not for people in lab coats. Okay, so this all brings us to our first huge takeaway, and this is critical. This isn't just another scientific puzzle we can solve by throwing more data at it. Oh no, the problem is way, way deeper, and it even has a name. You can actually see this whole conflict play out in a famous bet that was made in a bar back in 1998. Seriously, on one side you had this neuroscientist, Christoph Koch, and he was so sure, he wagered that within 25 years we'd pinpoint the exact neurons that create consciousness. But on the other side you had the philosopher, David Chalmers, who basically said, "You're missing the entire point." Chalmers gave it a name. He called it the hard problem. Now, he said the easy problem, and I'm using air quotes here, is mapping all the brain's wiring. The hard problem, the real mystery, is why all that wiring should have a subjective inner feel. Why aren't we all just super advanced biological computers, processing all this information completely in the dark? So, if just finding the right wires in the brain doesn't answer that huge why question, well, what if we've been looking in the wrong place entirely? And that little question right there, it leads us to our second big reveal. This one challenges a core belief of Western civilization itself. All right, so takeaway number 2. This idea, it completely flips our whole understanding of where our sense of self even comes from. And it all starts by correcting a huge mistake made by one of the most famous thinkers in all of history. You know the line. We've all heard it in school, right? Descartes, I think, therefore I am. It's this idea that our sophisticated, rational thought is what makes us conscious. But what if that's totally backwards? Neurologist Antonio Damasio argues that Descartes got it completely wrong. The real foundation of our being isn't thinking, it's feeling. It's I feel, therefore I am. And if you just think about it for a second, it makes perfect sense. You don't need to ponder complex philosophy to know that you exist. A searing toothache, a sudden pang of hunger, those raw physical experiences, that's the undeniable proof. It's like this quote says, while it's suffering, not even a cat can doubt its ununique self. So all this new research is pointing to the idea that consciousness actually evolved from the bottom up, not the top down. It didn't start in our big, fancy, modern neocortex. Nope. It started way down in the most ancient part of our brain, the brainstem, with these incredibly primal feelings like pain and hunger and itch. Those feelings, they were the very first sparks of consciousness. All that complex thinking we're so proud of, that came much, much later. It was just an upgrade. But wait, if consciousness is rooted in the body, in these raw feelings, then who or what is the I that's doing the feeling? And this, my friends, is where things get really, really strange. It brings us to our final and honestly most mind-bending takeaway. Okay, prepare yourself for this one. Because our third and final takeaway is basically a demolition job on the one thing you probably believe is the most fundamentally real thing in the universe, you. So let me ask you a direct question. Right now, think about that constant, stable I that you feel is inside your head. The narrator of your life story, the one who's been there since you were a little kid. Who or what is that exactly? Well, according to a whole lot of scientists and philosophers, the answer is a total shock. That stable, continuous self you feel so sure about, it doesn't actually exist. It's an illusion. See, there's no little CEO sitting in a command center in your brain. That I you experience isn't a solid, continuous thing. It's a process that your brain is constantly stitching together, moment by moment. The book calls it a useful fabrication, or even more powerfully, a controlled hallucination. It's just your brain's best guess, its most useful story about who's at the center of all this experience. So, if the self is just the brain's best guess, where does that leave us? Well, in a word, trapped. This quote really nails it. Consciousness is a labyrinth from which there is no exit. We're stuck inside our own experience, with literally no way to get an outside perspective. And that means the goal can't be to escape the labyrinth or to solve consciousness. That's probably impossible. The only real path forward is to become more aware of the walls of the labyrinth itself, to start exploring its strange, its beautiful, and yeah, sometimes its terrifying nature. Look, this isn't just some abstract philosophical exercise. It's an invitation. Every single morning, you open your eyes and a world appears. The question is, after thinking about all this, what world will appear for you now?